Welcome to the ThinkData Podcast in partnership with Dataworks. Today, I'm excited to welcome Sandeep Menon. He is the co-founder of Auxia. They are an AI-driven growth platform that's reinventing how companies activate, engage, monetize, and retain customers. Really interesting background because Sandeep spent 15 years or just over 15 years at Google, where he led marketing for a lot of their flagship products such as Android, Chrome, Google Play. So for the people listening here, we've probably all used the product. And actually, Sandeep was driving a lot of the teams that adopted and increased revenue across them. So really excited to have this conversation because you launched Auxia, correct me if I'm wrong, back in May of 2022. You had obviously worked in big tech for a number of years, and obviously Google being the biggest of the big tech. What inspired you to kind of make that move? Because I think a lot of people listening here, let's be honest, some of the best founders in the world have been raised and nurtured in the FANGs, they call them, but actually not everyone makes a success of their startup. So talk to me about that. What inspired you to make that move?
Yeah, Alex, first of all, thank you for having me here. Really excited to have this conversation. Well, it's an interesting question, right? So 15 years in my view is a very long time. And it's interesting because when you join a company like Google, you don't kind of join with like a plan like that, right? Like the thing with Google is that it was an incredible journey. I would say a journey of a lifetime. But one of the interesting things about a company like Google is that you have a glimpse into the future, a window into the future, much quicker than, I would say, a little bit earlier than most people do. As you know, things like transformers and LLMs were, quote unquote, invented at Google. So it was very clear to us post 2020 that AI is going to completely transform marketing, and that we are at the juncture of a transformative shift in how the best companies engage and grow their customers. So that is what prompted me, along with a group of engineers and data scientists from Google, to leave Google around May, as you said, and start Auxia in late 2022.
It's interesting. I know it's kind of a slightly left field question, but why do you think Google and these larger entities, they're so big and there's so much bureaucracy and layers and ways to navigate your journey there, but why do you think so many entrepreneurs come out of those companies and like yourself do then launch and grow very successful organizations? What is it internally that's kind of instilling this confidence that you can go and do it yourself?
Look, I joined Google in 2007, right? If you think about Google at that time, and I would say even now there are pockets of it, it is an extremely innovative company where entrepreneurship is encouraged, right? So if you think about like all of the when I joined, it was a time when YouTube was just acquired. Chrome came after that. Android was just being developed. It was launched after that, right? So a lot of the very interesting things. Google Photos came after that, right? So if you think about what a company like Google does internally to develop and ship really innovative products, it has a lot of characteristics of great product thinking, which is required for any good startup to succeed.
Yeah, it's interesting. I find it fascinating. I'm fortunate enough to speak to so many guests who've have some of the best education within these organizations, and it always it's interesting. You've seen it yourself, and they actually encourage that entrepreneurialism internally. And let's talk about Auxia. So I mentioned obviously AI-driven growth platform, very specific about kind of how companies are engaging, obviously retention, monetization. But in practice, what does it do, and what kind of problem is it solving?
Yeah. So like if you think about, we talked about the time when I joined Google. If you think about marketing in the last, let's say 10 to 15 years, the big innovation has been in what I call acquisition, right? So what platforms like Google and Meta enable you to do if you're a marketer is to assign a budget, assign a goal, and they would programmatically bring you traffic, right? So that is a huge innovation. People kind of forget how difficult it was to kind of acquire traffic at scale or customers at scale from anywhere in the world before these platforms came into existence. But what happens after that? This is everything from how do you, once you have a prospect or a customer on any of your products or any of your digital surfaces, how do you activate them, engage them, monetize them, and retain them. That's an equally important, if not more important, challenge. And unfortunately, that part of how you do it is still very broken and rules based. So what Auxia does is we try to make growth or post acquisition growth programmatic. And the way we do it is that we have the ability to kind of using a ton of really, really cool technology, connect to all of your first party data sources, sit on top of that, right? So, and extract signals at scale. And on this data layer, which is actually utilizing all of the rich data that you have, we have built a suite of AI agents that enables the marketers of today and future to work with, interact with, and then drive growth.
Interesting. So who would your typical customers, would it be kind of big brands, organizations that obviously have huge traffic and they're obviously trying to convert those and retain those customers? Have you got some examples of who you're typically working with?
Yeah, so you're right. When we started Auxia, we spent most of the first year developing the core infrastructure that is needed to kind of deploy a solution of this scale. And a lot of our early customers and our current customers are predominantly enterprises. Enterprises in three verticals: financial services, retail, marketplace, and increasingly media and technology. But I would say that the advances in AI and machine learning is making it possible for us now to kind of serve even slightly what I would call mid-market clients. So you don't need 10 million users or 1 million users for you to kind of get the benefit of a platform like Auxia anymore.
Oh, I see. So obviously with the technology advancements, actually it's become more open to less enterprise customers. So it's actually made it more accessible.
That is correct. Ultimately, we want to kind of democratize growth for any business. But even now, I would say that a solution like us is better suited for somebody who has a certain volume of existing users, a certain volume of first-party data.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. And I know obviously you're in obviously the heavy kind of AI personalization space, which obviously taps greatly into people's behaviors, their data profiles, their kind of social media imprints. How are you kind of balancing that? In the UK and Europe, we obviously got to have GDPR, and there's a huge, what you've seen with AI, and we're on the receiving end of this, was the amount of volume of emails and marketing is exponentially grown over the last couple of years, and it's directly linked to more accessible data and tooling like Auxia. But how are you balancing that kind of personalization versus protecting people's data at the end of the day?
Yeah, I think the fundamental thing that you need to deliver to enterprises and to their customers as an extension to that is transparency and control. So the way we have built our algorithms, both transparency and control are central to the system. Right. So, the second thing I would say is that we predominantly work with a customer's first-party data, our enterprise's first-party data. Most businesses now have a lot of first-party data. The challenge, both what they face and their end customers also face, is that they're not being very effective in using that to provide tailored experiences. Like ideally, means like you think about an app. Right. So any app, let's take a banking app. Why is it that right now that you have one standard banking app that works for all users with minor adjustments? In an ideal world, wouldn't it be that the app that Alex interacts with is hyper-personalized to his use cases, to what his interests are? And in fact, your point about emails and notifications, I completely agree. There is customer fatigue, but the fatigue is from getting unwarranted or something which is not very useful, right? So if you can, like, nobody ever said that, look, I found this incredibly useful email from a company that I have a relationship with. I didn't like it. I don't want to engage with it. That is the promise that I think now we can deliver to. You have all of this data that you've collected. Why is it that you're not using it to make sure that the customer experiences you deliver are hyper-personalized and hyper-relevant?
Yeah, it's a really interesting point. I was fortunate enough to have someone on about 3 months ago who worked within the AI within the retail space, and what they were building was actually a solution to make that user journey or the customer journey better. So because people have those kind of fatigue of products being flashed every 5 seconds, and I don't know if you're like me, but I can't stand shopping. And actually, but if I go into a retail premise and things are the journey is based around my preferences, and it's actually, then I'm more likely to re-engage with that process. Do you think we're at that kind of inflection point now with marketing and AI, where we've become so numbed by the amount of outreach we're getting that almost it takes a product like Auxia to kind of re-engage and regain that trust?
100%. And we hear this all the time from CMOs, right? Like many CMOs are in what I would call, especially you mentioned retail, in the retail segment, in what I would call a reacquisition treadmill. What I mean by that is you acquire a customer, let's say you spend a ton of money on Instagram and get a customer, you get her to kind of purchase a product. And if you want to get that customer back, unfortunately, you need to go back and again target on Instagram. Like that's, I think, really, really tough for a marketer, for a business. And part of the reason is that you have not been able to cultivate a loyalty, a relationship, a deep understanding of the user, and provide her with material, with information, with experiences that she craves. And to your point about like, what if you had a personalized shopper who would understand your needs really, really well, and would then curate and cater to your needs? I do think that technology today has the ability to kind of deliver that. And to your point, we will definitely, especially given everything that is happening around generative AI, will definitely reach a space where consumers will be turned off by anything that is not personalized and targeted specifically for their needs and desires. As similar to like every day I open my mailbox here, I get a bunch of physical mailbox, and get a bunch of
all falls out.
Yes, and then it goes straight to the recycle bin, right? So
yeah,
and I do think that analogy also transfers to how people experience digital.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'm glad you said that, because I think we've almost, we're all in the kind of, where my day job is hiring, and actually I know hiring managers are, inundated with messages from vendors, from recruiters, and to cut through that noise, it's quite hard, and eventually just end up shutting down and saying, well, I just won't respond to any of it. So in terms of the part that AI can play in that, would you say at the moment with Auxia and the AI being such a core component of it, you think actually in time the AI on your agents will become more intelligent, they'll become almost self-learning, they'll start to train themselves based on that profile to make that experience just better?
Yeah, 100%. And I often talk about like an experience growing up, right? So I grew up in a very small town in India, and then when my dad would go to the local bank branch, the bank manager would know him because it's a small town, like a few people. He would know what he does, what his job is, of course, his financials. He would know that his son is about to go to a college, might need a loan. And so every interaction you have with that the bank manager has with my dad is very personal. He knows exactly what you need at that point in time. And so now I think internet has really enabled for one-is-to-many communication, but you are missing that true one-is-to-one personalization. And you need two things. And I do think that what we are doing at Auxia will help you deliver that. Number one is a deep understanding of each user, not some superficial broad target or broad segment that you lump users into. Ideally, every user would like to have a cohort of one, right? Like you need to talk to me as if I am the specific individual that you're talking to. Second is another big bottleneck. Even if you have a deep understanding of that user, you should be able to, in real time, generate an experiences which is hyper-personalized to that data, that user. That has always been a challenge, because you can't, like, let's say a bank has 5 million customers. You can't have 5 million variations of your app in the old days. But now with everything that is happening with generative AI, I do think that is possible. And you will see that happening in the near future. And that is exactly the track that a solution like ours helps customers move towards.
And I'm all for it. I think as a consumer of multiple products, is you kind of have that path of least resistance nowadays. Unfortunately, the amount of emails you receive, you tend to engage less with them and just go back to what you've always done. But if, of course, you send hyper personalization, products, services that are tailored to your individual needs, then you're going to re-engage and probably have a better experience, because you're going to be exploring just more things. And in terms of trends and tools moving forward, and obviously marketing and generative AI has played such a core part in the growth of marketing and the volume, the quality is getting better. Over the next couple of years, what do you think some of the trends and tools you're going to begin to see? Maybe not necessarily just Auxia specific, but just broadly speaking.
Yeah. So one kind of meta trend that we see happening is the shift in what a marketer is, right? Simply put, every time the underlying shift, underlying technology, and how a consumer interacts with you or your content, your product changes, marketing goes through a transformative shift. I saw that during the early days of internet at Google and then at mobile. But even if you go back a few years, decades, it happened during the advent of TV advertising and print, etc. before that, right? And we are at the brink of a similar shift. The key thing that is going to happen in this shift is what I would call fusing of roles. Right now, if you think about most marketing teams, you have so many disparate functions that are needed to kind of put a campaign out and drive results. Yeah, you need like a product marketer, you need like a performance marketer, you need data analyst that's supported, you need operational support, you need life cycle. Increasingly, what we are seeing is that the role of marketing and product is also coming together. Just as you see on the other side, you see the same happening between product managers and engineers, also the roles coming together with AI agents. And I would assume that you see that a lot with your with what you do.
Roles are becoming hybrid, aren't they? You're getting merging of functions and role duties and profiles. And I think
absolutely
it's evolution, isn't it?
Yes. And like what we believe is that we are moving to a world where we would have in most large marketing teams or most large companies rather than large marketing teams, in most large companies, you would move towards fewer supermarketers. And these supermarketers would interact with on a daily basis with a suite of AI agents that would help them deliver exactly what like big marketing teams of the past used to do, much more effectively. And that is also the area, if you see, means like I see a lot of innovation, and that's the bet that we are making. We already have a decision agent which helps you decide exactly what to show to a particular customer at a particular point in time in their customer journey to get them to the objective function that you're looking for. You have an analyst agent. One of the common frustrations that I've had as a marketer is that often you do a bunch of stuff, then you need to rely on data scientists, analysts, etc., to understand what is working, what is not working, what is static, how do I need to change, adapt my campaigns, etc. Imagine you could do all of that using natural language from your system of choice, right? Like that's what a marketing analyst does. And then you could go on, like you would have a content agent, you would have similar agents like that, which would kind of replicate and provide help to all of the core functions that is needed within a marketing org.
I think you touched on something really interesting there. I get the question a lot here because I recruit in AI is obviously the displacement of talent as a result of AI. Do you therefore see a tool like an Auxia as a supporter, like an enabler to marketing functions? Or do you realistically, whether it's Auxia or not, do you think ultimately the makeup of marketing teams is going to change for forever because of obviously the fact that you can have these agents that are effectively, supporting each part of that process?
Yeah. So look, I'm a big believer in technology's power to kind of advance humanity, and this is a meta topic. So I definitely believe AI as something which helps people do their jobs better, and I feel it's definitely about augmentation rather than replacement. But to your point, that doesn't mean that the marketing organizations of today won't look similar to the marketing organizations of tomorrow. Absolutely. The way marketing teams are structured and operate is going and will go through a transformative shift. Just as we saw it during, like I said, internet, right? Like a lot of the functions that you have today, you didn't have it back in the days, right? So,
No.
So I'm absolutely sure that we will see that transformation happening, but I definitely don't look it from a lens of, hey, if you have a team of 100 marketers now, you only need 10, right? So that's not what it is. I think there'll be more important other adjacent functions that'll get created, but you will, just as today, working without having a laptop or a computer is something which we can't think about. Tomorrow, for the marketers of the future, not working with a set of agents would be unthinkable.
Yeah, I think it's a really valid point. I think it also goes back to your point earlier about the merging of job functions, the creation of new opportunities within that marketing. Who would have thought there's like marketing automation and econometrics? If you think about econometrics and go back 10 years, and what is that? But actually, it's a fundamental part, but actually that now role is now moving more towards deep data science. So I think the evolution, people have to be on board with that, because if you're stuck in one lane, then you are unfortunately going to be overtaken and replaced. But if you can evolve and allow this to support you, then I think you'll be okay.
Yeah, 100%. And you raised a good point. You see, with every technology trend, what the best people do is they use the technology and use the opportunity to become more strategic. So the supermarket of the future wants to work on strategic problems, deeply understanding customer needs, tailoring campaigns, tailoring product to suit their needs, and all of the many repetitive mundane tasks are things that definitely I would like. When I talk to most marketers, those are things that they would absolutely need and want help on, so that they can use their time for more strategic thought.
Yeah, no, I love that. And a question for you, obviously, you've obviously had a great career where you've led marketing initiatives at Google. You obviously are now obviously a co-founder of your own business. But if you're a marketeer coming into or in that marketing ecosystem, looking to get into tech or with tech or AI, what's the kind of major bit of advice you'd probably have for them in terms of the role, function, the duties, and kind of advice for? Because I think what we're seeing at the moment is people are in the middle of their degree courses, their undergrads, and actually the rate at which AI is progressing is almost the behind the curve just naturally anyway. No. So what advice would you say to them if they're coming in, they've got a great degree or they're about to graduate? What would you say this is what you should focus on?
Yeah, look, it's a very apt and important topic. On the rate of change of AI, I often hear from even the top researchers in the field that they feel that they are not able to keep up to pace with what's happening.
Yeah.
But again, to kind of the point about history rhyming, right? So if you think about like early to mid to late 2000s, like that's that I saw the big shift of internet happening, and that is also when the first really good digital marketers evolved, right? Like, and if you think about the smartest marketers who graduated then, those are the people who embrace digital, and we used to use the term digital native back then, right? Like, and the people who, I'm not talking about just the folks who were just starting in their profession, even the marketing leaders who embraced that change, right, were the ones who won and got ahead, right? Like, and the folks who were reluctant to make that change had a really tough period transitioning to this new world. I think we are going to say the same thing with AI. Any marketer who's starting out right now should think about AI, should embrace AI in every activity that we do. And I would say this is true for any function, not just marketing, right? So if you think about, you mentioned about what you do, and like if you think about how your day has changed and what percentage or what role that AI helps you as a co-pilot to kind of get to where you want to better, I would kind of wager that like it's increasing on a daily basis, right? So
completely.
So having that mindset is very, very important. Having that mindset of, look, the future is going to be one where I will need to work with AI. I will need to work with like multiple AI agents, and embracing that future is and learning to work in that future and understanding what the second order effects of that is and what good means in that is what I would strongly advise anybody starting out right now. But this is also the same conversation I have with the CMOs of today.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? And you get to talk about digital natives post.com boom, and you got these AI natives where this is just the new norm. You know, I was a recruiter, I'm a bit of a dinosaur by trade, and you kind of think, well, all these automation tools we're using behind the scenes, I'd have never thought 20 years ago, oh, do you know what, you can be recording calls, listening back and having all this artificial intelligence doing that. So I think it's really interesting. I think the problem you guys are solving is obviously, you know, the reason you had such successes. And moving forward over the next 6-12 months, what can people expect to see from Auxia in terms of the product roadmap, but also some of the problems you might be not solving now, but looking to solve?
Yeah, look, in all honesty, I think we have only scratched the surface of what we do, right? Like I said, right now we have 3 agents that we work with, the decision agent, the analyst agent, and a content agent. Content agent is a good example. We do some really interesting things. I do feel that general content generation using AI is commoditized. And the real interesting problem to solve is once you have a deep context of a user, how do you use that to kind of then help in taking the existing creative that you have and adjusting it to kind of suit the needs of each individual user, right? Like that's an area that we are continuing to invest in. I do feel has a lot of promise. If you ask me, there are only two companies that have done that really, really well. That's Google and Meta using PMax and Advantage Plus on the acquisition side, right? But wouldn't it be great if each marketer had that same power within their existing product surfaces, within all of the digital touch points that they had? We talked about issues like econometrics, attribution. These are all deep, interesting, tough problems that I believe AI can definitely play a big part in. I also believe that as our agents get better, like the analyst agent, for example, gets better, those are exactly the kind of problems that we would want to kind of solve.
Yeah, I think that's really important, isn't it? Because if you have to the source of that media spend, you can then invest more, you can pull back, and actually just makes companies more efficient. They're gonna have less cash burn rate. They're going to be more effective, and it all ties again to your point right at the beginning, just a better personalized experience for the consumers, which is ultimately what you're pushing for.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So a lot more interesting stuff, everything to do with the confluence of understanding users deeply with the data that you have and helping marketing managers, marketers, super marketers of the future execute and be much more efficient and effective in what they do.
Amazing. And for everyone listening to here, whether you're a marketeer or just curious what Auxia do, if you go on the website, there's a really intuitive page that shows the benefits of marketing with Auxia and without. And actually, when you look at the confusion around data points and the workflows, I think it explains very clearly, what you guys do. So no, thanks, Sandeep. It's been lots of fun. I've really enjoyed it. I think it's always good to kind of talk about a real world problem that the likes of you and me probably are encountering every single day, and how AI is solving it, but equally how the supermarketeer and this kind of new AI native kind of workforce is being created in front of us. No, thanks again.
Thank you, Alex. Really enjoyed the conversation and look forward to staying in touch.
Likewise. Thanks, Sandeep. Take care.
Yes. Bye.
Bye-bye.